The US President Joe Biden has made a surprise visit to Ukraine ahead of the war's first anniversary. It's the US President's first visit to Ukraine ever since the war began. The anniversary, the one-year anniversary, will be on Friday. Biden walked with Zelensky in Kyiv. The White House, in a press release, has said, as the world prepares for the first-year anniversary of Russia's brutal invasion in Kyiv today, to meet with President Zelensky and reaffirm our unwavering and unflagging commitment to Ukraine's democracy. Putin was dead wrong when he launched his invasion, and Biden is now meeting Zelensky to discuss America's support for Ukraine. He says that he will announce another delivery of critical equipment, including artillery, ammunition, anti-armor systems, and air surveillance radars to help protect the Ukrainian people from aerial bombardments. He says he would announce additional sanctions against elites and Russian companies. This visit is there to underscore America's support for Ukraine. A very important visit at a time when lots of questions have been asked about the economic costs of the war to the United States. Biden lines up in Kyiv and says, I'll keep supporting you, and I'll keep supporting you as long as it's needed. Biden was in Poland earlier on, and I believe will be meeting the Polish president as well. Poland, a frontline state to all that is taking place now. So a very, very important visit, a visit which the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said is the most important in the history of his country.
I know that so many have kept Ukrainian people, particularly women and children, in their prayers. Seeing what's happening, they can't fathom the idea of the shelling at night, the shelling of everything from orphanages to schools to the like. It's barbaric. And I'm here to show our unwavering support for the nation's independence. Today, I hope we're going to have a chance to discuss how the United States and our allies
Сполучених Штатів Америки в форматі тет-а-тет, а потім в розширеному форматі. Це була розмова, яка дійсно наближає нашу спільну перемогу в цій війні. Ми можемо і маємо зробити так, щоб саме цей рік, 23-й, став стійкий з двома зустрічами з паном президентом, моїм візитом і нашою командою в Вашингтон в грудні та візитом президента і його команди в Київ сьогодні, зараз. Результати цих візитів, безумовно, будуть відчутними.
Now, Dr. V.B. Soni, former ambassador of India to Ukraine. We're also joined by Dr. Tara Karta, former director of the National Security Council Secretariat. Thank you both very much for being with us. Dr. Soni, the visit of the US president to Kyiv and the announcement that America is going to send more weaponry Ukraine's way, does that clearly indicate that a path towards peace, right, or a peace formula in terms of discussions isn't foremost as far as America is concerned? It's never really been foremost as far as Ukraine is concerned.
Well, I think what is important for us to understand is that the two processes would go side by side. What was happening was there was a little progress on the Ukrainian front in respect of getting the U.S. allies, that means from Europe, to come on board fully. There was some reluctance. Some were coming, but not as wholeheartedly as they would have liked. So in order to tell them that, look, U.S. is behind Ukrainian president and Ukrainian people all the way, he thought that the best time would be for him to come now, the first anniversary of the attack, which happened on the 24th of February last year. Also, it's the beginning of the spring offensive. I think that is also to be kept into view. During the long winter months, there are difficulties for augmenting your supplies and getting things done. And there was also some questions going on in the minds of the Western leaders, whether the tanks, the German tanks and a whole lot of other people were a little reluctant. But to get them board fully, I think he took the initiative to show them, look, US is fully behind them, and so you better come and help in this effort, or else it will be late. They have also been warning against China, as you would have seen, and finally to Putin himself.
Yep.
We have given you opportunities, so many opportunities. If you do not mend your ways, you are not leaving us with any choice.
Right.
And they have asked for long-range weapons and missiles and even aircraft. So these are the things which will be on the card, and they will probably be promised during this visit. I believe he has already announced that $500 million.
Yes, he's announced that. Let me just go across, Ambassador, to Dr. Tala Karta, who's with us as well. Let's just look at it from the standpoint of history, because Friday is going to be 1 year. This was meant to be a war in which Russia overran Ukraine throughout Zelensky, and it's effectively had a vassal state or worse. Today, Russia has lost 54% of the territory that it gained since last year. Not talking about areas that it captured earlier on. But clearly the Russian war effort has failed if the ultimate goal was to capture Ukraine. At this stage, it's a question about whether Russia might actually lose.
I think it's a little early to say if Russia's lost, because right now it's hanging on to what it's gained. It's in Bakhmut and those areas it is dug in. It had a very orderly withdrawal across a river, which is not an easy thing to do. It was a very planned, well done thing. They're learning. But I would agree that it was a failure in the sense, I would say there was this whole public announcement that, we know you're going to invade on such and such a date, February, you're going to invade. The whole world was the US, sorry, not the whole world. The CIA was telling them that, which means as the head of the Russian president knew that his intelligence network was burst wide open and he still went in and did the attack. That was, to me, was the most surprising. But on Biden's visit, the fact is that, every single European leader has already gone. And I think Biden's wife had also gone for some time back. So it's high time he, I think has been wanting to go. The intelligence community is not letting him go. So that is one. Second is that, though he says there is bipartisan support for our position on Ukraine, that's not entirely, it's eroding, because now you see that about the research poll, the Pew polls show that about 78% of Americans are dissatisfied. They're dissatisfied with inflation, they're dissatisfied with life as it is, and even the support among, say, Republicans and Democrats is eroding from, I think it was 3% in March who were opposing. That's gone up to 40% among the Republicans and about, say, 10-15% among the Democrats. But it is rising. Yeah. There is a lot of opposition. So this visit hopefully will help to, to sort of bring that whole thing up close, that look, we are with the Ukrainians, we are with them, we are standing shoulder to shoulder. There's a lot of visuals going on. But also in the end, Vishnu, the fact is Ukraine is now virtually part of Europe. It's got European
weaponry. Which is
weaponry.
exactly what they wanted.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you don't need to have a piece of paper that says you're part of NATO or the EU.
Exactly.
They're already that. So, again, that was ultimately Putin's primary objective, was to prevent that. Yeah. Right? And apart from a piece of paper which says you're now part of NATO or the European Union, that's exactly what has happened. So, ultimately, Russia's war goal has failed in that regard as well.
Like I said, it's still too early to say. Let's see what the goal is. We were told that this is their goal, X is the goal. We don't know. Our biggest problem is we don't know what the Russians are thinking, what they're planning. At the moment, we have no idea. But for the ones who are suffering are the Ukrainians. I mean, look at that visual. Look at the number of people who have died. This is tragic. I mean, it is beyond tragic.
And more than 100,000 Russians have also quite easily died in this conflict.
Yes.
And I think the numbers seem to suggest that the casualty count on either side is horrific. And yet, Ambassador Soni, we still aren't talking actively about a peace formula. I think that has a great deal to do with public sentiment in Ukraine. This is a country that says that we want every square inch of our territory back. There is 100% support for Zelensky. They continue with the entire process of recruitment for their armed forces. They continue to get support as well until there is an urge, right, within Ukraine for peace talks. That won't happen, and certainly we don't see Russia offering peace talks either.
Well, yes, I think you're quite right. So far as Ukrainians are concerned, they're quite determined because it's a matter of self-respect for their nation. They have been on the Crimea issue. They had to give in, but right now they want to. They are in a difficult situation. They are not able to match with their might of Russia. That's why they're asking for help from wherever they can, in particular from the US and Europe. So once that has not been coming fully as per their requirement, that need is much more.
Sure.
So how long is Russia able to delay this process is the issue. And right now, Putin is in a difficult situation.
All right.
So whether the visit of Biden will spur him on to take some action, we'll have to see.
All right. I'd like to thank you both very much for joining us. Well, joining us now, Fred Ware. He's a Russia affairs expert based in Russia. I'm also joined by Manju Seth, the former diplomat. Manju Seth, ma'am, the key point here is that with America suggesting that more weaponry will be provided, in fact, Biden went to the extent of announcing it, does it clearly indicate that, talks for peace aren't the immediate priority? It's continuing to arm Ukraine, which is?
Absolutely. It looks like there is no indication of any move towards any serious negotiations. Now is a clear indication that they would like the war to continue till their sort of geopolitical ambition or goals are achieved in the region. And I think that is one of the messages, of course, that he has sent by being there, that Americans are firmly behind the Ukrainians, they are standing with them, and also a message of support to the Ukrainian people who have been the target of this sort of behind-the-scenes geopolitical maneuvering, you can say. And it is unfortunate that there is no indication of any peace talks, and this more and more weaponry and equipment is only going to add to the war,
right.
And nobody is going to come to the negotiating table.
Fred Ware, how do you expect Russia to respond to these developments, Biden and Kyiv?
Well, I don't think they'll be fazed by it much. I get the sense in the Russian media today that they sort of expected this. This is more. I think the mood in the Russian media would be more grandstanding, more political circus making. I think it is a strong affirmation by the Biden administration, but it should probably be, of support for Kyiv, for a willingness to stay with the war, no matter whether it takes a bad turn or not. But it's as important for Joe Biden as it is probably even more so for Joe Biden than for Zelensky, because he's got a lot of problems back home. His own ratings are in the tank, and a lot of even Democrats are saying he shouldn't run again. So I think this is as much about Joe Biden's flagging political support as it is about supporting Ukraine. But nevertheless, I think it's really important. It's if the Russians ignore it or laugh at it, they do so at their peril.
Ambassador Seth, does India have a role going forward? Do you see anything happening as far as our Prime Minister reaching out to the Russian leadership, also the Ukrainian leadership, talking about peace at a time when so many in NATO continue to be pushing, weapons and sort of pushing the line on war? When 1 year after it all began, there have been hundreds of thousands of people who've been killed in Russia and Ukraine collectively.
Infrastructure has been destroyed. People are living in absolute misery. And though India has been, from the beginning, advocating diplomacy and negotiations, and even just a little while back, a few weeks back, there was talk of India talking to both the presidents of Russia and Ukraine and trying to find some common ground to come together. But given the current situation and President Biden's visit today, it seems futile, I think, for India to try and do anything at this point of time. Maybe going forward, as a lot of people say, things will only get worse before they get better. We only can hope that will happen. But as the G20 president, India, in going forward, as we go towards the G20 summit in September, I think there might be some positive developments, and India could get the two sides to agree to at least get talking rather than fighting.
All right, I'd like to thank you both very much for joining us with that. Well, just returning to these images very briefly on what you see on your screen, a surprise visit to Ukraine by Joe Biden, the US president. It comes on virtually the eve of the anniversary, the first anniversary of the war in Ukraine after the invasion by Russian forces. The United States has pledged more support for Ukraine, making it quite clear that they'll back Ukraine in its war effort for as long as it takes. Now, this is welcome news for President Volodymyr Zelensky at a time when he'd been saying that he needs a lot more from the United States and its NATO allies in order to attempt to push out the Russians from the territory that they have illegally claimed. Remember, Ukraine has by and large been winning this war over the last 1 year. More than 54% of all territory captured by Russians since last year has been recaptured by Ukraine, but they're still a long way away from throwing out the Russians, and perhaps that is something which may be unrealistic at this juncture. But there are no peace talks expected anywhere around the corner. Nobody seems to be talking about that at all, and that has a great deal to do with how resolute the Ukrainians are, with many in the country, in fact virtually everyone, saying that the Russians have to be removed at any cost.